Welcome to the Trauma Informed Lens podcast. I'm your host, Matt Bennett. Each episode we talk about the research and practical aspects of the trauma informed movement. This podcast is not designed to replace mental health services. If you feel uncomfortable or triggered by our discussion, please consider seeking your own trauma treatment. In no way is seeking treatment an admission of weakness. It is a chance to build resiliency and experience post-traumatic growth. You can find show notes, resources, and more at traumainformedlens.org. Hey friends, welcome to the Trauma Informed Lens podcast. I'm Matt, as always. Just wanted to send out a end of the year message. 2020, happy holidays. It's been a really interesting year, obviously, for me, as I'm sure it has been for you as well, especially when you're an expert, care about, are interested in trauma. We are knee deep in it, in all shapes and sizes, and so I just wanted to send a few things out at the end of the year. First of all, I apologize for not getting an episode out in the last couple weeks. I had a really good string there going, over the holidays. Usually most of my guests, I guess I don't share this, reach out to me and, ask to be on the show, talk about a book, people that I find in trainings that I connect with, have them on. And so it was just kind of a natural pause here. I've also been working on a huge project with my friends at Cincinnati Health Network to put my trauma-informed care, self-care, motivational interviewing, and leadership trainings into an online training format, which I'm really excited about and have been sitting looking at this camera and this microphone, talking into it constantly over the last several months. So when I didn't have really anything to say, it was nice to take a little bit of a break, at least because I've been talking at my screen pretty much nonstop and throw the trainings in there, which have been great. So I apologize. Promise I got some good stuff coming up in 2021. Already recorded a great show. And have a really interesting model that I want to throw out as far as leadership and trauma-informed care are concerned. So I've been doing a lot of thinking on that with this new training series. With that said, sometimes words escape you and what to say. Again, I'm a hopeful guy. I always try to look for the positive things. When your life has been dedicated, as I like to say, not necessarily to trauma, but how do we help people heal from trauma? How do we people that have struggled to find hope and their lives have been filled with pain and suffering start to find hope? And so, I always take that positive mindset with things. And 2020 has been a beast. I'm exhausted. It's my first stage of burnout, which if I figure, if we're only exhausted, that says something pretty decent about ourselves. And it's sort of in the place where I feel now, and I talk about this sometimes in the training program, is we're always dancing between exhaustion and health and wellness. And that's actually the positive thing. And I've been really just giving voice. If you haven't heard me talk about that, I see that as our goal with self-care, is to, have proactive strategies to keep ourselves out of exhaustion. And then when there have reactive strategies to get out of there. And if your strategies have not been overwhelmed, it probably says a lot about your social support, your organization, because I've continued to spend a lot of time in exhaustion, and I've got a lot of hope for how things are going. But it's just with this election this year, again, the fight for racial justice. Let's not forget, Black Lives Matter movement happened in 2020. And is still, that fight continues to go on. And I know challenges ourselves, not to only look at our communities, but also our own organizations as well. And those conversations around race and equality are really difficult ones, especially when we're in the midst of a pandemic, especially when we're in the midst of this crazy political environment. I just watched the news, and there seems to be a movement to push for martial law to overturn the election from the highest levels. And that was just like, oh, we talked about that for 5-10 minutes and then move on to the next topic. That's how insane 2020 has been. We have a presidential candidate who lost, whose key advisors are pushing for martial law. Elected officials are, and it just makes the first segment of the news, if it makes the news at all, because hey, we got to go to the pandemic, which killed 3,000 plus people today, and the infection rates are right there. So this is our situation, and I think it's important just to say how unusually crazy that is. And how you go to work. Again, knowing that there's that fight out there for racial justice, knowing that the health equities battle is fighting. I was on a call with some folks from the UK, and I think we want to think about the UK system as like the paradise that we're all striving for as far as a healthcare system, and yet they're struggling with health equities like we are, to get that. And so it's a struggle. And I just want to give, part of this, and since my little talk coming into, I believe it was like the election, we've got vaccines out there now. And there's this not survival technique, but self-care technique that I've really had to give people permission to. My wife and I talk about this all the time, especially when we've hit tough stretches during the year, whether it's me, there's occasion, and boy do I miss this, but I might be training in 3 different cities in 4 days, jumping on airplanes, not knowing what time zone I'm waking up in, and it's just like, okay, I've got to survive this the best I can. I know I'm probably not going to end this trip, in the healthiest state, because, when you jump on planes and train in one time I did 4 keynotes in 3 time zones in a week. And I knew I wasn't going to come out of that with a whole lot of energy, but how do I give my best for that last talk, at the last minute of that last talk, to give my best self? And part of that is just saying, okay, I've got to survive. And, survival ideally would be for a week, maybe a couple weeks. You got a big grant to put in. You've got some big deadlines you're pushing, maybe if you're an educator, to spring break. We got to get to the vaccine, and I know a lot of folks might be on the front line. You may be listening to this and have gotten the vaccine, and how amazing that is. Obviously your struggle is not over either, but there seems to be hopefully 4 months to 6 months. I don't know what normalcy looks like. I'm assuming we won't go into martial law. I'm a little hopeful. I was really worried about this election. But if we can get to the spring, to the summer, halfway sane, there's an end to this. And I think we have to put it out there. And there's no way in a normal year that I would say, hey, just give yourself permission to survive, because we have to have a plan to survive 6 months, especially from our starting point. If we started out and, hey, 2020 was a great year and we just got, for whatever, 6 months of a horrible tragedy of some sort, and if we can get through that, we're okay. But a lot of us have been in survival mode since February, March. And let's face it, if we're honest with ourselves, research shows us very clearly we weren't in good shape going into that. I've really, I don't think I've shared this on the podcast yet, but I've been thinking about, I've never really used this analogy because I fly a lot and I don't like to think about this. It's never happened to me, knock on wood. I don't know if I'm ever get on a plane again or not, but it's that whole saying is, put your mask on first before you help the person next to you put their mask on. And, I get that, right? If you're going to care for other people, make sure you take care of yourself first. Check. I'm all for that. But at some point, we got to fix the damn plane. The plane is crashing. Physicians, nurses, social workers, social service workers, educators, folks in the criminal justice system, we are a mess. And we were a mess before this. And we are at higher risk. We are at higher stress than really almost any other workforce out there in COVID. So we started out, again, 1, physicians, 2, nurses, then social service, social workers, educators, physicians, lawyers, police. We started out mentally ill as professions. We started out in broken systems that destroy their workforce are not healthy systems. And then COVID hit. And I'm afraid for us. I'm afraid. I'll be honest. I'm afraid my friends are going to die because of stress, heart attacks, because we weren't very healthy going into this. And human beings, we're incredibly resilient, but going through maybe what will turn out to be 18 months of COVID, of this fight that I know we are also invested in for equality, civil rights, racial justice. While that was such a beautiful thing, it was also incredibly challenging in the midst of all this as well. And the challenge is to continue it because the work is not done by any stretch. And to survive this pandemic. I know people listening to this have lost folks, whether that be patients you care about, family members, co-workers. The story of death that I hear from folks is unlike anything. That we've lost several co-workers in this, much less the patients we cared about. Matt, how do we stay healthy? I don't have a great answer for that because you're continuing to do work that is traumatic. Chronic trauma, definition of chronic trauma, being in high stress situations for long sustained periods of time create traumatic reaction inside of us. So even if you haven't had a traumatic event happen, a loved one, a coworker, pass away, if you haven't experienced vicarious trauma or secondary trauma is just with us right now. And as we come out of this, and there'll be time for this discussion, but we got to have something left because we're in systems that don't stop once COVID ends. In fact, we'll probably be rushed with a lot of folks who haven't engaged in the healthcare system. It seems like since Congress got their bleep together, maybe we're delaying evictions, but we need to prevent them from happening. And so coming out of this, if I can look ahead, since that's what we're supposed to do, right? It's the New Year's. This is the last one of 2020 going into 21. What does 2021 look like? It looks like our folks will need, as my friend says over at the Healing Place podcast, Terry, #trauma warriors. Folks that I heard some awful, and I didn't get the study, I just heard it, I think, on NPR's 1 out of 5 people contemplated suicide in the last year. 1 out of 5. I even think I heard 1 out of 4, but I just almost can't psychologically handle 1 out of 4 right now. And that's some of you. And I know that. And we've got to take care of ourselves. Do we have an EAP program where we can engage in mental health? If you're a leader, if you're a supervisor, I know resources are tough, but can you give folks an hour of their workday to engage in mental health care? Triaging, pay time off. And when I say triaging, it's triaging. I know it's not probably for a lot of folks even a possibility, but when there's a chance to take a breath, how do you get people taking just a day off? Is there any funding out there to hire additional staff so we can get staff that we do have recovered in some kind of meaningful way, and thinking creative, thinking innovatively about self-care and leadership right now? And so this is where we're at. And it's, like I said, that survival thing of saying, okay, we're going to be in survival mode. Understanding that humans really aren't designed to be in survival mode without experiencing trauma for 6 months, a year, 18 months. But we're resilient. The resilient folks left the field or the unresilient folks, maybe the smart ones, left the field a long time ago. So, yeah, the plane's crashing. It's been crashing for a long time, but it's good to be on it with you. I wouldn't pick anybody else to have gone on this journey with. And so, I look forward, and it's just going to be a lot of people, our schools, our neighbors, our politicians, our business owners, our teachers. I've had a first grade classroom being conducted in my bedroom for the last month, and my wife is amazing. The energy she gives. I'm doing a train over here. She's doing a train. If you know me training, I give you everything I have. I'm a crazy madman with passion for this. She kicks my butt. What she does, and she's doing it like wearing a cow hat, a turkey hat, and doing it with first graders, and it moves me to tears, which it doesn't take a whole lot nowadays, but to see what they're doing. But our educators who may not know about things like secondary vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue are going to need our expertise. So we've got to take care of ourselves. We've got to really have a plan to recover. And if you're a leader, if you're a supervisor, hear that with an extra grain of urgency. You're going to have to get your staff back to health because our health and wellness are at huge risks. Again, we weren't doing good before this. The plane was crashing. And so we need to come out of this with lessons learned. People are going to be focusing on trauma. There is going to be funding once we get somewhat stabilized, which may not be in the summer. We may be just, hey, how do we keep the doors open throughout the rest of the year? Because tax revenue, we'll get hit. It's going to be the most vulnerable that's going to get hit. It's not going to be the wealthy. They'll continue to make money, but it's going to be folks experiencing homelessness, struggling with poverty, addiction, these issues that are obviously going to be impacted by the evictions and other things that we're going to have to fight and advocate like hell for. So folks are going to need us, and we're going to have to figure out, how do we take a breath? I'm not sure if we're going to be really able to take one until summertime for some of us. But if you can take a breath, again, especially leaders, hear me, triage time off. Even if it's half days and you can just shoot, if you can decrease any sort of administrative overload, look at what your organization puts on your folks. Now, you got to meet the federal requirements, state, whatever, to keep the doors open, but trying to minimize everything we can right now for folks. So there's going to be an opportunity for all of the hashtag trauma warriors out there, as my friend Terry says, to rise up after this, because there's going to be, if anything, like 1 out of 5 people have gotten to the point of their mental health where they've contemplated taking their own life. There's gonna be a huge need for us to support not only the people we support every day, but others in our communities as well. So we need to pick ourselves up when we can, anyway, how, even if it's only halfway up, to keep pushing forward and survive this, get to the other side, take a breath, because of the need for us, those folks with a passion, with expertise to talk about trauma, is going to be needed more than ever. The good thing is we made so much progress in this paradigm. I'm blown away. 2019, 2020, it's just been an explosion. Again, talking to some friends in the UK, that they're where we were 3-4 years ago, it seems like, around some of this stuff. But, let's try to find some joy in this holiday season. At least if you need some dopamine, this freaking year is almost over. And I think we'll look back at this. I always wondered, a year that's always fascinated me was 1968. Because something shifted then. And it didn't necessarily shift into maybe a better world. You could almost argue that a lot of stuff was lost of potential there. That where was that energy of love, of hope, of transformation, of peace? It died on the vine in some way, shape, or form. But there was a transformational thing that happened there that may have not have realized itself medium to long term the way a lot of folks that were taking to the streets, that were protesting, and maybe hoped it would happen. And reading books on that, there was a lot of progress. But we're going to have our opportunity. This destabilization provides a force for the helpers, healers, educators to come together and really make some of the transformational change we know is needed in our community. So if all you can do is celebrate that this year is over, celebrate that a vaccine is out. Maybe some of you have gotten it. I know I'm low on that list. I'm going to keep my butt low on that list. I want to make sure every teacher, educator, social worker, shelter worker gets it before I do. I'm okay with that. I can Zoom it. Hey, I can go into a room full of vaccinated people as an unvaccinated person. I'm okay with that. Keep hope. We're going to need you. Triage, self-care whenever you can. Be okay with that means crashing on the couch on your day off. If that's got to be self-care right now, great. But we've got to start to build ourselves back up to health. So I want to thank you for being with me on this journey of the Trauma Informed Lens podcast. I think we hit like episode 30. I've stopped counting them at this point, or 130 at this point. But I want to thank you. Like I said, got some stuff I think is going to be really timely coming in early on in 2021. And I'm looking forward to keep working with you. Feel free, as always, to reach out. If you've got a message to share, my email is matt@bigl3c.org. Obviously, traumainformed.org as well. And my friends, take care of yourself. Happy New Year. Happy saying goodbye to 2020. And again, let's do what we need to do to survive, because we're going to be needed more than ever. Thank you so much. The fact you take some time to listen to me is such a privilege, such an honor that you bestowed in me. And I just want to send a message of thanks out to you and for all those on the front line risking your safety every day. The time that you take out to listen to my rants and voices, I just want to thank you for that as well. Take care of yourself, my friends. I'm going to see you in 2021.